This is Duke University.
At a very high level, we can think that there are four ingredients that contribute to successful entrepreneurship. It's a combination of a good idea, good execution, money, and luck. What I'm going to talk to you today is the process of getting to that success. The model that many people have of entrepreneurship is that it's a sequential process of analyzing a business idea, developing an elaborate plan, and then executing on that plan. What I've called the traditional model for entrepreneurship begins with a phase of analyzing the business idea to see if it's worth pursuing. The second step would be to create a business plan for that idea. This plan would be very detailed and would cover a 4 to 5 year planning horizon for the business. Once the plan is in place, that would be used to fund the business, and then the team would go off and execute and hope that they were right in their analysis and that they had good luck. So that's clearly a bit of a caricature, but that's what many people have in mind when they think of traditional entrepreneurship. In today's world, there's been a lot of hype around a new model of entrepreneurship called the lean startup. On this new method, the idea is to launch as quickly as possible, learn from that experience, and then iterate to come up with the right model through experimentation rather than through planning in advance. So the questions that I want to talk about today are, first, what is the right mix of planning and execution in a startup, and can we describe that in a meaningful way? And the second is the business plan obsolete? Is planning irrelevant in an entrepreneurial venture? The Program for Entrepreneurs is a program where Fuqua students, working with students around the university, work on startup ideas, either their own ideas or technologies that they found at Duke or at other universities. So it's open to a wide range of entrepreneurial ventures, including for-profit and social ventures. The Program for Entrepreneurs begins in the summer before the student's first year and goes through the fall of their second year. In the beginning, teams are formed and they coalesce around business ideas that they decide to bring into the program, and then they go through a sequence of 3 courses where they try to progress the business idea or come to the conclusion that they no longer want to pursue it. This obviously creates a funnel where at the beginning we have many teams and many projects, and at the end we have only a few that are left standing. Most of the teams have grown from 2 or 3 students to as many as 7, 8, or 9 students working on a project.
For me, Program for Entrepreneurs was the most impactful set of classes I took at Fuqua because it allowed me to bring in elements of finance, of strategy classes, and marketing that really richened my experience because I was looking at it through the lens of starting my own business. So I felt as though I was getting a much broader education by going through the Program for Entrepreneurship because it made all these other classes much more meaningful to me. So I was willing to really put the time and energy into going through all the case studies and getting the educational value out of it, and then applying that to real world situations that really helped me get my business off the ground.
We are now working with our 6th cohort of MBA students in the Program for Entrepreneurs. We've had 69 projects in the program. Of these projects, 18 are still standing in some form. We've had 49 failures. Of those, 42 are for lack of an identified market need. Every entrepreneurial venture is about finding a match between a market and product. What's unique about entrepreneurship is that the market doesn't exist already. If the market already existed, it would be too late to form an entrepreneurial venture. So how do you know in advance whether there's a market? In most cases, you can't find out by asking people. So how do you find out? You experiment. But what do you learn if the experiment fails? By itself, failure tells you nothing. Learning requires specific objectives, and that requires a roadmap. There are many unknowns that need to be resolved to ensure success of an entrepreneurial venture. The roadmap involves navigating through the set of unknowns and forming a logical sequence of learning that you can then use to map your experiments as you build your venture.
Investors Mosaic started off with a working hypothesis that individual investors wanted a tool set to make their own investment decisions and stock picking capabilities. And so we built a website around this idea, and we got it going, had customers come on board and play with the site, started getting customer feedback, and very quickly it became evident that consumers didn't have the time or the desire to do their own stock research, so they were willing to pay professional money managers to take this load off of their shoulders. And the other important element was that we learned that investors, individual investors, didn't really have the concept or the skill set on how to value stocks, so they're making really bad decisions. So it was totally counter to our whole idea of trying to help individual investors make better decisions. So that caused us to pivot towards a new idea, which was building tools for the professional money managers to help them make better investment decisions, which would then lead to more money for their clients. So we went and built 2 specific tools for the professional managers, and I went out and started to sell that product and realized I just wasn't passionate about selling these products. And I knew, of being the founder and the #1 salesperson of the company, if I couldn't champion and sell the product, then we were going to fail. So I said, we got to stop this approach, and we went to the third pivot, which was sell myself as the product. So I have a background in investing. I have a very specific investment strategy that I employ. So I made myself the product, and I started an investment advisor firm, still under the name Investors Mosaic, where I take people's brokerage accounts, IRAs, and manage their portfolio for them. And that allowed me to combine the concept of helping people save for retirement, building a business that I'm really passionate about. And it took all these learning ideas from the experience learning process that made us slowly iterate to this final business model, which I think is going to work very successfully going forward.
So the reality is that experimentation by itself is meaningless, and planning by itself without being connected to the real world is also meaningless. The trick, the discipline, is to connect the planning to the execution in a way that you can learn in a structured, disciplined fashion and really progress your venture. What we've concluded is that the discipline of entrepreneurship involves the right balance of planning and execution. It involves well-formulated, clearly thought out hypotheses, tests with very specific learning objectives, a sequence of unknowns and how you're going to navigate them. This gives you the most efficient use of your resources, the most efficient use of people and whatever capital you have, and the highest probability of success. The discipline of entrepreneurship involves beginning execution as soon as possible, performing experiments, but experiments guided by analysis and planning so that there is a roadmap, and it always begins by validating the market first.